setting up the webinar for Facebook Live. Okay. We are now live. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tzadik, for joining me today in this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to share with everyone how this all started, how this conversation was born. And I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but that's the fun of it, isn't it? So those of you who are with us on Facebook, I invite you to, put things in the comments and ask your questions. And if we're not able to get to it during the live stream, we'll look at it afterwards. But this is a participatory live. So I hope that you guys will jump on board and converse with us. So
is there a way where I can see the comments as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you go to my profile,
okay,
you can see, and if you want even, you can share it, hit share and share the live stream to your profile as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Tzadik, you and I were having this conversation, and I don't remember, but somehow chemtrails came up. And you said something about unicorns and colors and farting rainbows or something. Do you remember that?
I think, well, if I'm remembering correctly, the conversation began around GMO. And we were discussing the common orientations around a lot of different really buzz topics like GMO, like chemtrails, you name it, pick the technology that really kicks up a lot. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I was sharing around the GMO trail, and then what I had shared kicked up for you a thought around chemtrails, and then we had a lot of fun with it. But if I remember correctly, what I was sharing was with GMOs that I have a story for myself. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with GMOs in and of themselves. That working with the genetics or working with life is an age-old practice. I mean, if you look at a lot of the grafting of trees and how new produce is created that way, the playing with life is nothing new. But how we choose to do it, I think, is the measure of what kicks up toxicity versus medicine. And I said, I wonder what would happen if our GMO industry, instead of figuring out how to produce crops that are big and inexpensive, that their orientation was, how do we create and produce crops that are healthy for the environment, nutrient dense, have all these different qualities, and they're actually playing with genetics in a way that's actually for net benefit as opposed to profits for a select few.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of those concepts that you seeded in my being, it wasn't the way I'd ever thought of it before. And the energy of just a slight tweak in the way of thinking about it was truly powerful and transformational. So I think with the example of chemtrails and seeing, you said something like, imagine every time you see a chemtrail, it's like you're being showered in this beautiful, like fairy dust or something. I forget the words you used. And I was like, holy crap, yes. And it shifted the energy of everything for me. And that's what I wanted to present today is the power that we have as humans to transmute these matrix technologies that up till now have mostly been in service to shadow, have been, just for profit and not for the benefit of humanity. And when we can change it, even if they still use it with ill intent, we can change it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today.
Right. And the thought that was coming to my mind that felt really humorous. Part of my history and background is being involved in global peace activism, peace and justice movement, and what have you. And just thinking about all different sorts of ways of direct action to help influence the conversation around different issues. And so the thought that's coming to mind as you were talking about this, like, what would it be like to have like playful, fun, direct action where we rented out those small planes? And so like right now we see these small planes commonly used to dust crops with pesticides, or to dust our weathering systems with certain types of chemtrails. What would it be like if we actually had a positive direct action where we started, dusting an area with, the thought that came to my mind the other day was like lavender oil, something that right, that would just uplift the spirits of the people around, and would actually show, hey, like it's not the dusting of chemicals that's wrong. It's what's in the chemicals and who's winning and who's losing. And like, can we actually model, like you were just saying, can we model, unicorns with rainbow farts? that we're sending vehicles, we're sending technology out there that's modeling the way that might create that more abundant, playful reality, not by going like this to the Monsantos, but be like, hey, let's create another model that still does that human investigatory thing of like, hey, like there's this life thing. We're always wanting to improve life, but can we do it from a way that's trying to make it better for everyone? And how cool would it be if there was another company that came around focused on GMOs, but really focused on how to work with GMO in a way that's for the net benefit of all? Like, how cool would that be?
And I had never thought of that, because my story around GMOs is bad, wrong, no good can come of this. Never had my mind even ventured into the possibility that we could use biotechnology and genetically modified food to make it better, more healthier, more vibrant. Just, that's not where my mind went, because all I know about GMOs is the shadow side. So I love that you brought that to the table.
Thank you. What comes alive for me, like as you're talking, is a lot of the piece work that I do is it's all relational, right? So all of this is really relational. How do we relate to a term? How do we relate to a concept? How do we relate to others? I even look in as what's going on right now with the dance between the masculine and the feminine. And that one of the things that I talk about a lot right now is just because, let's say, I or you or someone had an abusive father, that doesn't mean that all fathers are abusive. And that doesn't also mean that that specific abusive father can't heal and become a more holistic, integrative father and mother, or, like all the different archetypes. And so what happens is, let's say you have Monsanto, or you have these different bad mothers or fathers, it leaves an imprint in our system. And then we start writing a story thinking there must only be bad fathers in the world.
Yeah.
And so how do we look at that, rewrite the narrative inside, and then start welcoming other models to come alive to help balance the field, rather than spending so much energy on this is the only way fathers ever show up. This is the only way businesses ever show up. This is the only way corporations ever show up, or religions or nations. Like, what if we shifted that and saw all of them as tools?
I like the example of religions because I grew up Mennonite, I grew up Christian, I grew up in the church, and my experience of the church, judgment, judgment, judgment. That's what I remember most, which is really sad because there were beautiful experiences in the church as well. And as I met other Christians later on in my life, and I met these beautiful beings who didn't judge, I was like, who are you? Where did you come from? What? And it healed a lot of those wounds around being judged as a Christian. And it was just like this whole new realm, like, wow, not all Christians are judgmental. Oh, wow. How amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd love to jump to the topic of chemtrails because it is something that is a huge trigger for a lot of light workers. And, here in Sedona, even we have, meetings where people get together, against chemtrails or whatever they do. I don't know exactly what they do at the meetings, all with good intention, but it's still this energy of againstness. And I like what you've brought into the conversation about how can we work with what's already happening? Because anytime you're against something, what resists persists. So how can we bring in, this is what's happening right now. How can we transmute it? How can we work with it?
Right. And I also want to, before going down that thread, honor what I would call the sacred opposition. And what I mean is by that is that taking a stance of being against, it's a paradox. Like I love how the I'm trying to think. The Dalai Lama speaks about the Chinese. He's like, my friend, my enemy, the Chinese. And he acknowledges that he is in a stance of opposition. And he doesn't negate his love. And so there are times where it might totally be appropriate to hold that stance of against. But when we do, can we hold a space of love and be like, okay, is this stance truly loving? Or am I actually getting in both my way and their way? Because sometimes saying no is powerful.
Perfect.
And necessary. So I want to honor that part as well. I want to, if people are feeling called to say, like, stop this, no more this, like I want to honor that too. Like, there's this like duality of like, you have to always be positive, and the negative, like they're not spiritual beings. Like, like that. I think what that actually does is create a lot of people without healthy boundaries. Really checking in, like, what is the appropriate stance right now? Is there a yes? Is there a no? Or is there somewhere in between that would be most effective in this conversation? And so,
thank you.
Yeah. So off that rant, because I want to honor the people who are the in your face, like, this isn't working for me. Like that's a sacred position. I think one of the things I want to acknowledge, like within the chemtrail conversation, is some people know this, some people don't know this, but Congress acknowledged last year that the chemtrail phenomena is real. Yeah. That's huge. For decades, there have been these people who have been watchdogs around this issue, and there's been a lot of denial. There's finally enough movement. So thank you to all those people who have been, holding that strong position,
Yeah.
like calling for accountability, calling for justice with our government and with the corporations that are in relationship to our government. Thank you, like, for speaking that and raising awareness around that, because as a result, our largest governing body, Congress, has publicly acknowledged this going on.
And thank you for that course correction, Tzadik, because in no way by what I was saying was I trying to make fun or belittle those people. It's not my way, it's not my role, it's not what I've been called to, but I do absolutely honor those who have been called to that role. So thank you for really taking that time to honor.
Yeah, and I'm there with you as well. It's like, the way I look at it is, it's like seasons, and that fall position, like autumn position, is that position of choosing what works and what doesn't work. And it's that clearness of saying yes or no.
Yeah.
If we're always in fall, that's going to create a lot of problems from my perspective. But if we resist fall, that's going to cause problems as well.
So for those for whom it is not their role to take that, firm stand and say no, for those of us who have a different way, let's go into that. What is the way?
Right. What do you think? What do you think?
The title of this is Chemtrails and Unicorns. I loved what you said about when we see the chemtrail in the sky, in our minds, in our hearts, turning it into something else. Like, so from now on, my practice is when I see that trail in the sky, oh, that's a stream of essential oils, or that's a unicorn fart, or
Right. Yeah. The thought that comes up. Go ahead.
Playing with it, making it lighter, making it fun.
Totally.
Because, and I want to explain why that works as a method of transmutation, because the energetics of the joy, the fun, the play with it does not diminish the seriousness of it, but it changes what you are radiating out from you, what you are emanating from your being. And if you're emanating fun, joy, and play instead of anger, disempowerment, disappointment, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are two thoughts that are coming alive for me. One, it's a delicate balance. Like, how do we play with what is without going into like a denial, right? So like, how do we consciously play, not by negating certain things, but like truly being alchemists. And one of the thoughts that's coming to my mind is petroleum.
Petroleum. Okay.
So petroleum, some people know this, some people don't. Petroleum is the remnants of ancient plants and animals. It's basically matter that was stored and over time, that decomposed and became this goo, this liquid, and we now use it as fuel for so much around the planet. And there's a lot of negative associations with petroleum. I would say, again, that goes into the conversation of like, because of how we're using it. But what came alive for me, I think it was about a decade ago, where I just realized, like, oh my God, like, we're having a major global ceremony. We have these ancient beings that were basically like smoking a pipe, if you will. Because what's happening, like when you put petroleum into the pipe of a car, or you put it into all these different, devices, then smoke comes out. I call petroleum dragon's blood. So It's like it's the remnants from an age way back when. And what we're doing right now is we're putting into the air all this ancient, this ancient moment is now we're breathing it in.
So every time I'm driving my car, I'm doing sacred ceremony.
It can be that. Yeah. It can be that. Yeah.
I feel like intention goes a long way. Mindfulness goes a long way. And so instead of being upset that I'm polluting the environment, if I'm approaching it from a sacred point of view, I'm performing sacred ceremony. It's a whole different frequency. The energetics are completely different.
Yeah. And I think it, it feels in my system like a both and, so it's like, because I'm looking at a lot of like what we're going through as a species right now, what feels like this remembrance.
Yes.
What I've been observing is like we are becoming archaic. We're like remembering our ancient roots. Like we're remembering a time way back when we were feeling more connected to the earth. And so whether this is true or not, I don't know. But the inhaling of this time, the smoke from this time of way back when, it feels like there might be something to it. As far as the inhaling of this past time that was stuck in the ground, held for all this time. And does that negate the fact that if we burn too much of it, it'll cause certain things? No, it doesn't negate it. But if we can hold both, rather than always holding it in this one angle of petroleum is bad, carbon monoxide, all that stuff, and see a bigger picture. That's the whole nature of holistic living. Is seeing the whole as opposed to just getting stuck in one perspective.
And keeping in mind that in sacred ceremony, you're using moderation, you're using very powerful intention for the ceremony. It's not willy-nilly. It's not like, okay, let's see how much ceremony we can do in 24 hours, or, it's very intentional, and you're using resources very wisely.
I love that. Yeah. Because like with that end, like the way you just put it, for me, like integrates that. Like it's like, that sacred ceremony, it's not a mindlessness of like, yeah, we could use whatever, it's this. And so we're putting our pretending mask. We're not. We're just being like, okay, yes, we're aware of this, and we're aware of this. And like it's the way that I describe like how do we walk in the world aware of the fact that we are creatures with claws and teeth or fangs and immune systems that are kill, right? So how do we then walk in this world acknowledging that part of us, but not identifying with those parts of ourselves as the totality of who we are, but not ignoring them either?
Right.
Yeah.
I think this would be a perfect time to check in with our community to see if there are any questions, any comments, anything we need to address from the community. So just give me a moment as my Facebook loads here. All right, let's see if we have anything here. Okay, 2 comments. Okay, be an explorer of new possibilities. And yes, thank you, Stormy. Yes. And we literally give things around us a different meaning so that we can have a new experience. Yes, beautiful. Exactly. That's pretty much exactly what we're saying. She gets it. Yes. For those of you, and I want to address this too, for those of you who don't get what we're saying, like if this is feeling like utter nonsense and woo-woo way out there, that's okay too. This conversation is planting seeds. And if you're willing to receive those seeds into your being, maybe at some later point, some of what we're saying will make sense. I know that we are stretching the boundaries and challenging paradigms, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's exactly what this conversation is about. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not every day that you talk about unicorn rainbow farts on a live stream. What's that?
On Facebook Live, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Important stuff.
Tzadik, do you have anything else that you really want to express about this topic?
Well, I guess the thought that comes to my mind is not necessarily, well, I guess there is some stuff in there for me. We've talked about the chemtrails.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the unicorns.
Okay.
And like, where did that, like, I know we were joking around about like the unicorns and like farting rainbows and that being the example of an alternate to the current paradigm of chemtrails. And so we were to encapsulate that conversation of why we put that as the label. It's like, here's the model. Because the thought that comes to my mind is like, you've got the horse. And in a lot of different shamanic traditions and spiritual traditions, the horse is the animal that's associated with power. And in David Carson's medicine card deck, it's number 35. And it's actually the animal that's associated with the medicine wheel and balanced in the 4 directions. And so it's interesting because like in our culture, when we hear the word power, a lot of red flags show up for people and there's a lot of trigger and everything. And yet in this lineage, with the horses and power, it's actually, how do you balance your power? How do you live in the world in that way that you were talking about before, in a ceremonious way where all your seasons are accounted for, working with each other, interacting, and allowing that wholeness to be? And so this was coming alive for me, like as you had chosen the title for this topic. And I was thinking about like, what is a unicorn? Like, okay, I got the horse aspect down. And then that's when that thought started coming into my mind this last week, is like the horse is that animal that represents power.
Yeah.
And it's a very powerful being. And then the unicorn as basically this power being that has like a very pointed spiral thing right out of his 3rd chakra. And so I want to toss that over to your court right now and not give any more explanation of thoughts that have arisen for me. I kind of toss that over to you and see what that,
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. So for me, this spiral horn thing, and I'm representing it in the best way that I can today. I don't have time to make a spiral horn, but that connection, that horn is providing direction, like it's pointing the way wherever the horse, the unicorn, is going. And it's this connection to, I would say, its source. And so that's part of the way that we bring that power balance in, is by connecting to source, because that's the purity, that's the love, that's the ultimate words. That's the ultimate connection to what's real, what's pure, what's true. And that's how we balance the power. When we're powerful from that place of truth, purity, love, and our intention for that. And that's what I feel like the unicorn represents. Yeah, go ahead.
Represents, yeah. The thought that's going on my mind as I'm just feeling into the visuals and seeing it in my mind's eye is like the way that the unicorn horn works, at least in the pictures I've seen. I haven't met like, I mean, other than you got a lot of unicorn in you. But as far as the storybooks go, I haven't yet to meet a unicorn in this lifetime. What I see it depicted as is basically the spiraling, right?
Yeah.
And what looks like in my mind's eye is like where it's actually, it feels like it's 2 different horns maybe four spiraled together. So it's like bringing duality into, yeah, exactly. So it's bringing duality into unity. So like the thought that was coming to mind is like at the third chakra being the place of vision. How do we bring our collective vision, our polar opposite parts into a unified field? And then act in the world like from that place. And that was part of it as well was coming. It's like it's not just it's like this unified whole. It doesn't lose its spiral. It doesn't become homogenous. It still allows for its duality to be expressed within the unity.
Love it. And as a side note, there is an actual unicorn chakra, which is where I have this placed. It's sort of where the hairline meets the forehead. It's different than the third eye. It's up higher. Max introduced me to that.
Do I have one?
Everyone has one. If you have a chakra system, you have a unicorn chakra.
And do you have a story around like what that energy represents or what that
I should have looked it up before we started this. Totally does. I can see if I can find it real quick on my computer. There is definitely a meaning for that. I myself am not too engaged with the chakra system. So I don't tend to retain things like that in my mind. But I'm finding an image here. This might be it. Okay, unicorn. Okay, unicorn signifies transition. It's part of the Akasa system, and Mac would have to explain that to you. I don't remember what that is. The mind association is it interprets, like the third eye perceives, the unicorn interprets. The feeling associated with it is understanding, and the energy association is meridians. So the body image string network that meridians represent. Does that help, or does that bring in more questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frame, and I love like just gathering information and seeing different perspectives and what.
Let me actually see if I can share this image. I think I can screen share here.
Like what's coming alive for me is what this notion of blended power. Because even if you think about like what color unicorns are typically associated with, they're like this pure white. And for anyone who knows anything about colors, and this goes back to the rainbow farts, but like white, if you spin the color of the rainbow really fast, it actually becomes white. And so on a lot of people, I had this whole conversation about the whole conversation of like, there's this notion that there's whiteness and people of color. I was like, no, actually, I actually wrote an article that got published in a national publication that I said, well, wait a second, like, because I'm not willing myself, I know this is going into a whole other category, but I said, I'm not white. Like a lot of people look at me and they think I'm white. Yeah. And I'm like, well, actually, no, I'm a color too. It's just a lighter shade, and none of us are actually white. White is what happens when we all come together. And we're all people of color. Like we all have shades, we all have texture and flavors. And so what was coming alive for me, I was thinking about like, you've got this blended horn of the duality, and then the pure white as the representation of all the colors combined. I was like, for me, it was just like this, I guess, kept seeing this phrase of blended power. Like the unicorn is being blended power, where we are all coming together. We're not losing ourselves, but we're all coming together in our full power with each other.
Love that. And before we part ways today from this conversation, just checking to see if there are any more comments. No more comments on my page. I want to invite people into that power, into their power of transmutation, meaning they can see a GMO food in the store. They can see a chemtrail in the sky. They can see, whatever it is that is a normal trigger, and take the emotional charge of that trigger and turn it into something light. Turn it into something that is serving our creations of light rather than serving the shadow. Mm. And we can all do this. We can all do this. We can all look up in the sky, see something we don't like, and say, oh, a unicorn farted again? Oh, unicorn farts today. I can't believe, like, what are these creatures doing up there? They're like crazy active today. What have they eaten? Fun. Because if you can feel the level of joy I have right now, it's so much better than when I look up into the sky and say, oh man, we're just covered in chemtrails again. Like, what the? Such a different frequency, right?
Yeah. And if we're all Gaia, like, meaning if you're an expression of Gaia, I'm an expression of Gaia, plastic bags, which is also petroleum, is an expression of Gaia. Gaia is expressing itself. We could point fingers at humanity or at the beings in the plane, but we I'm trying to figure out how to exactly say this, but
we're the ones creating all of it.
Yeah, we're that.
We are just as responsible for our creations and our reactions and maintaining our frequency as the powers that be are responsible for what they're creating. So I'm this is like my rant. I'm a little bit tired of people giving their power away to the powers that be when we have just as much power, if not more, because there are way more of them of us than there are of them. They're a very small percentage compared to all of the rest of us on this planet co-creating together. So why don't we just claim our power back and say, yeah, unicorns are farting again today.
Yeah. Most people don't like to talk about what I'm about to say, but this is what happens when you do a live stream at Tzadik. But as far as power and shared power, the piece that most people don't like to talk about is, so the First Amendment is about freedom of speech. The Second Amendment, take away the gun conversation. Mm-hmm. What if we look about it from a meta perspective? The Second Amendment is about distribution of force and distribution of power. Mm. What the founders of this nation were actually saying, hey, how do we construct our nation in a way where we don't give too much power to any part of the structure, and how do we evenly distribute not just our voice, which is the First Amendment, but our force, which is the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, the conversation is derailed into whether you can own guns or not. But what it's really about is, how do we create a field of equal power?
Love it. Love it. I don't know why people wouldn't want to talk about this, Tzadik. This is profound and amazing. Mm. Because that's what has happened with a lot of, if we look at the Constitution or whatever, it's been twisted in a way that people are then triggered by the whole gun thing, when, as you say, it's not even about that.
Right.
We've somehow allowed it to become that, and then that takes us out of our power.
Right. Which I think is like, it's one of the, I don't want to say this, one of the things that I see us majorly facing right now as a culture, as a nation, is power. And how do we distribute it? And what happens when we distribute it in a way that's not harmonious and balanced. And that's what we're seeing right now in a major way. And it's no one individual person's part. It's not one party's fault. It's a co-creation. Yep. And so, I was a political science major at Columbia University way back when. And so this is a field that I've really geeked out around. But, so I could easily go into like, how did we get here? But I, and that's informative. But then going back to like what you're saying is like, okay, like when we're in places where we're feeling as if the power is not distributed in a way that's serving everyone, how do we then shift from that place that's causing harm to a place that's causing like health and wellness and balance? And I think that's the dance that we're all getting to. That's the question that we're all getting to dance right now.
Yeah.
Globally.
Thank you so much, Tzadik, for showing up for this conversation today. And
thank you.
Before we say goodbye, if people want to know more about you, any services that you provide, where should they go to find out?
Sure. So I'm the founder of an organization called Earthwalk. It's a global peace organization. And you can easily find us at earthwalkunited.org. We're actually going to be participating in World Peace Day in 8 days from today on the equinox and doing some major global broadcasts. So you can find us on Facebook, Earthwalk United, or earthwalkunited.org is our website.
Where will those broadcasts be from? Your Facebook page?
No, the broadcasts, unified.org is another global peace organization. We're partnering with them and dozens of other organizations, along with about 20,000 event organizers around the planet. And so Earthwalk has an hour of the global broadcast. So millions of people will be watching. We'll be broadcasting on September 22nd from noon to 1 p.m. If people go to our Facebook page, Mountain Time, thank you. Yes, 12 to 1 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll be teaching peace practices and conscious connection practices and actually showing how do we do this transition from a place of disempowerment to mutual empowerment. How do we step into the unicorn way? And which I love that. Like, so thank you so much for that. The best way would be to go to our Facebook page, and we have the event and we're promoting it there. So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to drop a quick little teaser. In the most recent transmission from Prime Creator, that energy shared with us an amazing, profound way to reset the planet and the energy on the planet. And so you can find that video. It will be released on YouTube next week. And if you want to watch it now, you can join the Creation Temple for free at creationtemple.com. And I'm not going to tell you what Prime Creator said because I want you to watch the video and feel the energy of the transmission because it's so beautiful and profound. So thank you so much again, Tzadik, for being with me. Thank you, community, for showing up for our live stream, and next time.
Awesome. Love you. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.